What if I told you the people who built the greatest empire in history were not just warriors, they were party lovers, deep thinkers, brutal fighters, and surprisingly, highly emotional humans. The Roman Empire, a civilization known for power, discipline, and conquest. But here's the truth no one talks about. Rome was not just built on swords. It was built on personality, on attitude, on beliefs, on a way of life. And once you understand the Romans, you realize they were nothing like you imagine. When people think of Rome, they imagine armies, armor war, blood. But that's only half the story, because Roman people were raised with a very specific mindset. Discipline above everything, honor over fear, and glory over life itself from a young age. Roman boys were taught one thing: you are not born to live, you are born to achieve. Failure, unacceptable. Weakness, disgraceful. That's why Roman soldiers were different. They didn't just fight, they dominated. Romans were not just harsh, they were also deeply cultural. They loved art, music, poetry, philosophy. They built theaters, wrote literature, and discussed ideas that still shape the world today. Imagine this: a man who fights in a brutal war during the day, and at night, he sits in a bathhouse, talking about philosophy. That was Rome. Unlike modern society, Romans hid isolation. They lived in groups, ate together, celebrated together, and most importantly, they celebrated a lot. Because festivals in Rome were not just events, they were a way of life. Now here's where things get interesting. Roman festivals were not simple. They were wild, massive, sometimes even shocking. Let's start with one of the most famous ones. Imagine a world where slaves became masters, masters served slaves, rules were broken, and chaos was allowed. This was Saturnalia, a festival dedicated to the god Saturn. For several days, work stopped, schools closed, gambling was allowed. People gave gifts, and the biggest twist: social roles reversed. Yes, even slaves could sit at the table and give orders to their masters. This was Rome's way of saying, for a few days everyone is equal. Sounds crazy, right? But that was Rome. Another festival, even more intense, was Bacchanalia. This was dedicated to Bacchus, the god of wine. But this was not just drinking, this was madness. People danced wildly, drank excessively, lost control. Some historians even say things got so out of control that the Roman government had to be in it. Yes, a festival so extreme, even Rome said enough. Romans didn't celebrate randomly. Every festival had a purpose. Every celebration was connected to gods, because Romans believed, if you keep the gods happy, Rome will stay strong. That's why they had Jupiter, king of gods, Mars, god of war, Venus, goddess of love, and many more. Their life, their success, even their wars, everything was connected to religion. These festivals did not die with Rome. No, they survived. They evolved. And even today, you might be celebrating a Roman tradition without even realizing it. Take a guess: Christmas. Ever wonder why it's full of gift-giving, feasting, celebration? That's not a coincidence. Many historians believe Saturnalia influenced Christmas traditions. The idea of celebration, gifts, joy. It all feels very Roman. Even modern carnivals, like those in Brazil, Italy, Spain, have roots in Roman festivals like Lupercalia, Bacchanalia, wild celebrations, costumes, freedom. Sound familiar? Because it is. Let's break it down simply. They were disciplined, but loved chaos, brutal in war, but emotional in life, religious, but loved pleasure, strict, but knew how to celebrate. They were balanced. In a strange way, Romans understood something that we still struggle with today. A life is not just about work, it's also about living. Because not all Roman behavior was good. Their love for entertainment sometimes became cruel: gladiator fights, public executions, violent games. People cheered, watched, enjoyed. This was entertainment in Rome. And that tells you something important. Romans were not soft, they were tough, very tough. Because what if I told you, the same festivals that brought joy also brought corruption? What if I told you, the same lifestyle that made Rome powerful also made it weak? And what if I told you, Rome did not fall just because of enemies, it fell because of its own people? But what if I told you, the real secret of Rome was not just its power, not just its festivals, but its daily life? Because the way Romans lived is the real reason why they became so strong and eventually so weak. Imagine this: you wake up in ancient Rome. The city is already alive, crowds moving, vendors shouting, horses running across stone roads. Rome was loud, busy, full of energy, but life was not the same for everyone, because Roman society was divided. The rich, the poor, and the slaves, and each lived a completely different life. If you were wealthy in Rome, life was luxury, huge villas, marble floors, servants everywhere. You didn't work, you managed. Your day looked like this: morning meetings and politics, afternoon bathhouses, evening feasts and parties. Yes, bathhouses were a big deal. This was not just about washing. This was social life. Business deals happened here. Friendships were built here. Even politics was discussed here. Hot baths, cold pools, steam rooms. It was like a mix of gym and social club. Now here's where it gets crazy. Roman elite loved food, but not just eating. They overate massive tables, exotic dishes, endless wine, and sometimes they ate so much that they would force themselves to vomit just to eat again. Yes, that was real. For them, food was not survival, it was power. But not everyone lived like this. Most Romans were poor. They lived in small apartments called insulae, crowded, noisy, sometimes dangerous. Fires were common, buildings collapsed. Life was hard. They worked daily jobs, laborers, shopkeepers, workers, and yet, even they found time to celebrate, because festivals were for everyone. Now here's the harsh truth: Rome ran on slavery. Millions of slaves. They built roads, worked in homes, fought as gladiators. They had no freedom. But during festivals like Saturnalia, even they got a taste of power. For a few days, they were treated as equals. And that says a lot about Roman society. You thought Saturnalia was wild. Listen to this. This festival was dedicated to fertility. But the way they celebrated it, shocking. Men would run through the streets, hitting women with strips of animal skin. And here's the twist: women wanted this because they believed it would bring fertility and luck. Strange. Yes, but for Romans, this was normal. Dedicated to Flora, goddess of flowers. This was a celebration of spring, colorful clothes, dancing, games, and unlike other festivals, this one was more playful. Even actors performed without shame. It was freedom, joy, and beauty. Now let's talk about something dark: Roman entertainment. The Colosseum. Thousands of people sitting, watching violence, gladiators fighting to death, animals attacking humans. And the crowd, they cheered loudly, because for Romans, strength was everything. Weakness was not entertaining. Now here's the sharp part: Rome is gone, but its culture still alive. Modern Rome still celebrates carnivals, costumes, parades, festivals, direct descendants of Roman traditions. Ever seen carnival? Wild dancing, music, freedom. That energy feels just like Bacchanalia. Loud, chaotic, alive. Even today, people celebrate Christmas, New Year feasts, gift-giving, family gatherings, celebration spirit. All of it echoes of Roman Saturnalia. It was not just power, it was balance. They worked hard, but celebrated harder. They were disciplined, but loved freedom. They were religious, but enjoyed life fully, because slowly, the balance broke. Too much luxury, too much entertainment, too much comfort. Discipline started fading. People became lazy, corrupt, divided. The same festivals that united them started distracting them. Rome was not destroyed overnight, it decayed from within. Its people changed. Their mindset changed, and that was more dangerous than any enemy. So the next time you think about Rome, don't just think about war, think about the people. their lifestyle, their choices, their celebrations. Because in the end, Rome did not fall just because of barbarians. It fell because it forgot what made it strong.